Can't see my face, but I'm here. Hi. What I wanted to talk about today was the gradient scale. This scale is mainly used to do light and shading, but it also helps you get a feel for the pencil or feel for the charcoal that you are doing. So what I want to do is explain this a little bit. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 values in this gradient scale. The more values that you have, the more detail and more depth you're going to have in a picture. Some people go from light to dark, which is fine, but I find it easier to go heavy-handed on the dark side and then slowly shade over and lift my hand just a little each time to get to the lightest gradient. What I would do is I'd take my charcoal or pencil and I'd lightly go across. And it doesn't have to be neatly into a square just yet. Just go ahead and go loosely across the page. It'll be a whole lot easier. So that's how you'd achieve this first gradient scale. The second one requires a little bit more finessing and a tortillon tool or a shader. I like to use my finger and just shade across. I mean, you will get dirty, but I mean, that's like the worst part of it. It's not really that difficult. So you'd shade across just like you did before, lightly lifting your fingers across the page, or, you know, lifting your hand across the page lightly as you get to the lightest shade. You can use, I think it's a chamois cloth, or you can use your finger to shade things, or the tortillon, however you want to do. Personally, the fingers are easier, but if your hands are a little bit more oilier, then I don't recommend doing that. I recommend using some sort of shading tool to shade it out, and just as best you can, blend in between these two shades. And then for the last one's a little bit more fun, and a lot of people tend to do this one. So what I did was a crosshatch, and a crosshatch is just little fine marks on the paper going back and forth that enable you, after building it up over a section, will enable you to make a shadow or a color here and there depending on where you're shading. So with the crosshatch, it's basically just X's back and forth. That's the easiest way to explain it. So what I did was I grabbed a Faber-Castell pencil. This one is a medium pit charcoal pencil. And these are easy to get from any kind of store, but I like Pit Pastel. They're kind of pricey. If you want to go a little cheaper, you can get Artist Loft, but I mean, that's if you want to go a little cheaper. If you're not real too fond of, you know, charcoal, you can still use a regular HB pencil. A regular HB pencil is, you know, kind of like the artist's go-to, so I recommend using those. Those are the pencils that we use in like 1st or 2nd grade. So what you're gonna do is, when you make your little diagonal, just go over and make sure that when you do this, you make the lines closer together to do the crosshatch. They don't have to be perfect. They just have to be closer together because you want to create more a feeling of shading without actually shading. And then you go back the other way, creating another diagonal. That's essentially all cross-hatching is. If you want to make it a little bit more darker, you can go back over and press a little bit more firmer onto the page. So what I did was drew a quick anime eye. So get closer. Okay, so what I did was I drew a quick anime eye, and what you can do is use, I guess, like the simple method. So that will be the shaded in. Go light. So I'm going lightly against the picture and filling in. It does not have to be perfect right now. And I don't know if other artists do this, but if I am inking something, before I ink it, I'll take a light pencil. We are going to fill this in. And I'm not really shading. I'm not really shading. I'm not blending it out. I'm adding shading by just adding the actual value down on the paper. So we're gonna fill this in. And the easiest way to think of this would probably be like a coloring book, honestly. And with this, because it's an outlined type of picture, you don't necessarily have to always stay like in between, well, in the lines. Because I just want to see how this is going to look with a value. Now I have an art subscription called Art Snacks, and they send you full-size items. I think it's about 5 items each month of professional art tools. So they sent me this month Faber-Castell 4-pit artist pens. These are awesome, but I find these to be somewhat heavy depending on how you do it. They have 1.5. They have, oh god, I think this is the small one, this is the medium one, and this is the bold one. They do their, they actually do their labeling a little different. There are micron pens that people use, but microns are really great, but they burn out a lot. I am not a big fan of micron because of that, but I do like the payoff. It's not waterproof, but I mean, they're micron. They're like the go-to. And the lids are also labeled. See, let's see. This is the SB. This is the actual brush, which is fine. I'm gonna probably use that for this. This is like a medium. This is the 1.5. This is the B. This is, I guess, the usual size. And this is the SC. So this actually has a curve to the tip. You can't see it, which is kind of crappy. This is more of a bolder set. So let's take the artist pen, which is the B, and we're just gonna fill this in. Or at least outline it. Even though it looks more like a brush, the outline is still pretty thin. I'm kind of surprised about. Usually these are all just really bold when they're like this. Now what I like to do sometimes is leave pencil mark on purpose, but I mean, you don't have to. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw the outline of the eye. I tend to go a little bit bold on it. And we are just gonna go out. You can go in the shape of the eye. You can just push it out to the side, but we want to turn this a bit. And now what you can do is go back down across this. You can leave it as is if you want, but I'm gonna go down a little bit. You do want it to go in some sort of shape with the eye. And you're doing the second crosshatch, whatever shape that you want, so you can achieve that depth. And you can even do it on the eyelid if you want, but I suggest making these really tiny, just to add shading without actually shading. So it actually comes out like you shaded it, but you didn't. That's one of the reasons why I like cross-hatching. Now with the smoothing out method, of course you would smooth this all out, but my little chubby wubby fingers, it's gonna come off anyway when you smooth it out, which is, I mean, it's fine. But if you want a smooth ink effect, you can also just take the pen, not this chisel pen, where is it? This one has a bolder tip, and just literally go in and fill it in. Always make sure that when you're inking something or even filling in something that you do the outside outline first, because then that will hold it in if it bleeds over. I just learned that trick, oddly enough. So now my lines are actually inside versus out. If you have trouble filling this in evenly, you can go slow and go at an angle or go in the direction of the eye. So if it was like the top of the eyelid, some people tend to mess up and they miss spots if they're going fast, and it tends to look like that. You can go slower but in that same direction and just slowly build it up. I almost forgot. Now if you want to clean this up, you can. I like to blend these out a little bit, ink around it, and then if for some reason, like some shading, depending on how you shade it, will actually add depth to it. If that is the case, I usually leave it there and then just go around it. It's like a subtle black and white hue. So if I made some shading up here, I like the mixture of the ink with the charcoal, so I'll probably leave that, but I will like do a little on the inside just to add more depth. And then I'll erase out the pupil and also use, some people use whiteout. That's a trick too. If you don't have white paint and you don't have like that tiny animation paintbrush that they make you buy for $30, which is ridiculous. Some people just take a regular tiny paintbrush from the store and then they turn around and erase that out and use whiteout. So if you don't have anything else, you can do that, or use, I think it's like glue, and you can glue this section off, just like a light tacky glue. Glue that section off, paint over it, color over it, whatever you want to do. A lot of people who do watercolor will do that, and then just peel it off, and then your whites will be intact. But you know, if you want to finish it off, you can gloss them up. So let's do that for a second. Okay, so I went and got my Ticonderoga, which is the school pencil, basically. Everybody calls it the school pencil. They've made the erasers way better. Now, this paper isn't as forgiving. Let's see. Also, if my ass doesn't knock it over. We have this weird tool, which is a duster. And it dusts off all our shavings and whatnot off of our page. It is also used in architecture when they're making their drafts for different buildings and all that jazz. You can use this to dust off the page so you don't smear your actual drawing. You can take a looser paintbrush that has the, I guess, like the looser type of bristles, and it will have the same effect. I forgot how much these are, but I know this was pricier than getting a cheaper paintbrush that's used only for dusting, because it won't dent in the page and it won't smear. So if this doesn't erase completely, it's because it is newspaper print and I wanted to show you this on the newspaper print, but this page is very, very soft, so I'm trying very hard not to actually rip this. I don't know if you noticed, the first page was actually kind of ripped from me just grabbing this. So we'll get more into the textures of paper, because a texture of paper, or a certain paper that's used particularly for certain things, especially with like watercolor pages, you want to be gentle, especially with a page like this. So we'll just erase that off of there. See, for me, I like that type of look. A lot of people don't, as far as mixing medias. And the medias is just like pencil versus charcoal, charcoal versus pencil versus paint. But I feel like it makes the picture a lot more interesting. So let's see, even if we inked her eyebrow a little bit, we don't necessarily have to ink the whole thing, but to hold her eye together. Again, if you're not comfortable with ink, that's fine. It took me a while to get really comfortable with ink like this, because I like to ink a lot, especially like comic book stuff. It makes a little bit more sense for me. If you're not that person and you feel like you're gonna mess up your picture, use pencil. Use pencil. Use the number 2 pencil. Use the number 2 pencil with this type of rubber eraser. Those are really the best type of erasers, are the rubber ones, so that you do not rip your page. If you feel like you're gonna rip your page, or you feel like you're leaving an impression, like so, you do like this. So this is pencil, and then you try to erase it, and it leaves a mark, like, and you don't necessarily want that mark. Draw lighter. Draw it as an outline versus as a full-fledged picture, because then you can barely see that. Then you can actually erase this after you've drawn in the face and the eye structure and the detail, but we'll get more into that. But anyway, I hope you liked my eyeball. Hey guys, thank you so very much for watching. If you stayed to the end of the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully I can get more art videos out to you. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.